The chronological Bible reading plan for April 26th is Psalms 73, 77, and 78. Do you ever feel tempted to look at other people, what they have, the happiness they appear to have, at least how they display it on social media, and compare yourself to them and think, it's just not fair. Haven't I done the right thing? Haven't I been a good person? Aren't I generous? Don't I pray? Don't I read the Bible? Why is their life so much better than mine? The psalmist can relate. My feet almost slipped. My steps nearly went astray, for I envied the arrogant. I saw the prosperity of the wicked. When we take our eyes off of ourselves and we take our eyes off of other people, we're able to look at the goodness of God. I mean, consider yourself as a child coming home from school and talking to your father and saying, it's not fair. The children next to me had nicer backpacks and newer, cooler, more expensive shoes. They had better haircuts. The lunches they packed from home had better food. A loving and wise parent would respond, be grateful for what you have. A loving and perhaps foolish parent might respond, I will get you those things too, so that you can be happy like them. But that would be a mistake because those things will never make the child happy. Getting more stuff will never make a human being happy. Maybe just for a moment, but it won't last. True happiness and joy comes from knowing God, knowing that He approves of you, knowing that He has pleasure in spending time with you. How kind of God to deprive us of the things that our hearts long for, so that we will be forced to love Him and find true happiness that lasts. Paul in the New Testament writes, I have learned to be content in every circumstance, whether I'm poor or rich, well fed or starving. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's about being content in every circumstance. How could we possibly learn to be content in every circumstance unless we experience every circumstance? Psalm 73:18 says, when I tried to understand all this, it seemed hopeless until I entered God's sanctuary. Then I understood their destiny and perhaps my own as well. See, it's difficult to understand why the wicked seem to prosper and why the righteous seem to be poor until we enter God's sanctuary. When we shift our gaze from ourselves and we begin to worship Him, it unlocks a new perspective, and we stop thinking about the things we don't have and we start praising Him for how good He is. At the end of our days, are we going to be complaining and wishing that we had had more? Or are we going to be rejoicing and grateful that we had the only thing that really ever mattered? I would rather be poor in this world and rich in faith than have everything this world had to offer and lose my own soul for eternity. Even when it seems like God Himself is rejecting me, even when it feels like the ceiling is Teflon and my prayers are not surpassing it, they're just bouncing back at me. Psalm 77, verse 7, will the Lord reject forever and never again show favor? Has His faithful love ceased forever? Is His promise at an end for all generations? He wouldn't have been writing these things if He didn't feel this way. Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has He in anger withheld His compassion? We as Christians know that God will bless us if He wants to, but we don't know if He wants to. And that's called weak faith, friends. We need to learn and understand and grow so that our faith blossoms and we get to this place that we understand God will give us what we need most. And when we want something that is outside of God's will, we have to die to ourselves. We have to hold it up to Him and say, God, not my will, but your will be done. And yet, at the same time, He's not calling us to be slaves. He's calling us to be His friends. And so we try to strike that balance between wanting holy goodness, great things that God would want, like Abraham saying, surely, God, you don't want to destroy this entire city. What if there's just 5 righteous people there? Or like Moses and Aaron running out into the midst of the people as they are being struck by the angel of destruction and saying, no, stop. This will harm your reputation, God. But until we get to that place where we can trust Him and we understand His heart, we're not going to be in a position to oppose Him in a loving, kind, good friend kind of a way. The only hope we have is to study this word, to get it inside of our hearts so that it changes us and it unlocks a new perspective within us, a perspective that is like God's. And that way, when we are in that spirit, when we have God's will built up within us because we know His heart, we know what He wants, we know what is best like He does, then we can say, no, God, it's not fair. It's not fair what's taking place out there. And we speak forth life and liberty over unjust situations. We put our foot down in the spirit realm and say, no, more of that. It's going to be this way from now on. And that brings Him such pleasure when we understand our authority. But just like a 14-year-old learning to drive is not going to be given the keys to a Lamborghini, we have to grow and mature. We have to think about the needs of other people. We have to think about the thoughts that are on God's heart. What if we were just to stop and pray, even right now? God, what is on your heart? Father, what would you like me to be praying about? And then stop and listen and write down what He says. I challenge you to do that, my friends. Let me know what God says to you when you ask Him, what is on your heart, Father? Write it down and then comment on this video. God bless you, my friends. Thank you for being on this journey with me. We'll see you tomorrow.